Moochie Kalala Detectives Club was made to investigate the truth behind
Grandpa's awesome stories.
In this episode, Grandpa tells a story about the magic blocks of creation
and how Moochie Kalala, the great architect, used them to create the Robie House.
Yeah.
Grandpa tells a great story, but his facts are, well,
totally awesome!
Totally crazy. So, to get the real facts on architecture,
we'll head down to the Robie House and meet famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright.
Actually, we'll meet historical architect Roy Cedar, but he'll tell us all about Frank Lloyd Wright and the Robie House.
Mr. Geeter just loves shapes.
Magical, huh?
We'll gather enough facts to find out whether Grandpa was right.
Or just pulling our leg.
Well, hold on.
Here's what we're gonna find out. We'll go and search for the magic blocks of creation.
Right. And we'll find out how Frank Lloyd Wright used the magic blocks to create the Robie House.
And find out what architects do.
We'll also see how buildings are supported. But the big question, are buildings made from shapes?
This is a huge checklist.
But it's our guide to uncovering the truth. At the end of the episode, we'll want to test our discoveries. But how?
We can help! We're Mrs. Taylor's 5th grade class. Woodgate Elementary School!
Awesome! Thanks, guys!
Now, let's go discover the truth behind Grandpa's story about the magic blocks of creation.
Funding for Moochie Kalala Detectives Club is made possible by...
I've been going to North Shore for a long time.
Annual checkups.
High-risk pregnancy.
I have a child with autism.
Anything I had, they could handle.
Everything North Shore does, they do to manage my health care better.
Their research actually alerted me to my hypertension.
I avoided a stroke.
I think it's a combination of expertise and compassion.
That kind of commitment to me and my family. That's why I chose North Shore.
At North Shore University Health System, excellence is all around you.
With additional support from Sylvan Learning, locations in Hyde Park, University Village, Oak Lawn, Westmont, and Skokie Lincolnwood. Learn more at chicagosylvan.com. Whole Foods Market, People's Gas and North Shore Gas, natural gas delivery, and The Stream, a kid adventure film for the whole family, starring Mario Lopez, Kelly Rutherford, Christopher Gorham, and Rainn Wilson. Available on Amazon and iTunes.
Is this thing on? Oh, there you are. Welcome to the Moochie Kalala Detectives Club.
That's my grandpa.
He tells us crazy stories. He actually believes that his stories are true.
Well, that's what the story says.
We're not so sure. So, with Moochie Cam in hand, we go discover the truth behind Grandpa's stories. My mom is a doctor, so it's our dad who gets to pilot us on our journeys into discovering the truth. This is my little bro Kyle. He's my detective sidekick. I'm Mandy, the lead investigator. So those are our discoveries for our journey to investigating Grandpa's stories. With every new story comes a new adventure for the Moochie Kalala Detectives Club. Episode 5. Did you know that Moochie Kalala was a famous architect? It's a person who creates buildings. Do you know how Moochie created all those buildings?
Yeah.
Magic blocks. You know what magic blocks are? Neither did we, but Grandpa filled us in with today's story.
Look!
Ew, don't drip milk on me.
It looks like the state Illinois.
No, it doesn't.
Dad?
Wow, you know, it does look like the state of Illinois.
Look, Dad.
That looks like the planet Pluto.
Wrong. Pluto's not a planet anymore. It's a dwarf planet. Right, Dad?
Yeah, right. Sounds good to me, Mooch.
First grade is so wasted on you.
Good morning from your Grandpasaurus. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the real shape makers, the magic blocks of creation.
The magical blocks of creation?
Yep, handed down from one generation to the next to the next. Oh, wow, Illinois, the corny state. You know, with these, you can build anything you want.
Whoa, anything?
Sure, just shape them into any building you want, then ta-da, a real one magically appears.
Yeah, right?
You know, Moochie Kalala was skeptical at first, too.
Uh-huh.
Methinks it is time for a story. Come on. After Moochie defeated the dragon Tiamat, she became the pharaoh's official architect.
What is an architect?
Oh, that's a person who designs buildings.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. Architect to the pharaoh is a huge responsibility. Moochie had her work cut out for her. Because Pharaoh was sick and tired of looking at all of these rectangle buildings.
Rectangles in Egypt? Weren't there pyramids?
Hey, who's telling this story? No, where was I? Right. Pharaoh was bored with all these rectangle buildings, so he commissioned Moochie to create something new, something completely different.
Did she build lots of cool stuff?
Not so much. To say Moochie wasn't a good architect would be the understatement of the year 2000 BC. Moochie built one square monstrosity after another. Pharaoh was disappointed with Moochie's flops, so he did what any self-respecting pharaoh would do.
Couldn't he have just fired her?
In those days, collecting unemployment was far worse punishment than being fed to crocodiles.
But the guards couldn't do it, right, Grandpa? They couldn't throw a little girl to hungry crocodiles, right?
Let me think about that. Sure they could. Moochie was in deep trouble. The crocodiles were salivating at the thought of a Moochie, Munchy, Lunchy, until Moochie whipped off her belt, used it as a lasso, and clamped Big Daddy Croc's snapping jaws shut. Chew on that, she said proudly. The other Crocs panicked and hightailed it out of there. Then Moochie noticed something unusual in the Croc's front claw.
Another girl?
No, a box. Moochie, always a bit of a snoop, grabbed the box and paddled ashore. Back on land, Moochie quickly opened the box.
What was in it, Grandpa? Gold? Jewelry?
Something better. The magic blocks of creation.
Oh.
A note on the box said, use these blocks to create whatever you want. A skeptical Moochie tossed the box over her shoulder, spilling the blocks everywhere. She turned to walk away, and then something began to happen.
What, Grandpa? What?
An earthquake! The ground shuddered and shook and rattled and rumbled. Moochie dove to the dirt with a great big thud. Then it stopped, and Moochie couldn't believe what she was looking at.
What did she see, Grandpa?
A giant pyramid. She had never seen a shape so exotic, so grand. Moochie looked at the blocks. They were in the shape of a pyramid, too. So she grabbed one block, then another, then another. She twisted them this way, then that way. And then the ground shook again, and wham! There was the Sphinx. Moochie was so excited she picked the tiny Sphinx up and took it to show the Pharaoh. Well, Pharaoh was speechless. He apologized to Moochie, then he canceled her death sentence. And he asked Moochie to build him a new city. Moochie happily agreed and promised him any shapes that he desired. Word spread about Moochie's architectural accomplishments. Soon, she was sought after by kings, queens, and maharajas everywhere. First stop, Japan, where Moochie wowed the emperor with a magnificent golden temple. She called it Kinkaku-ji.
I would have called it Moochie tea.
Ha! Good one. Moochie was just about to leave Japan when...
What, Grandpa?
A giant pigeon landed in front of her.
Ew. Did it?
No, he was quite polite. See, in those days, people didn't communicate by text or email. They used pigeons to carry messages. And this message was a doozy.
What did it say, Grandpa?
It said, "Dear Moochie, I've heard about your magic blocks. I'm working on a project in Chicago and desperately need your help. Signed, FLW." Well, Moochie couldn't let this FLW down, so she hopped on the pigeon's back and flew all the way home to the United States.
Wait, she flew on the pigeon?
What, you never heard of a carrier pigeon? Moochie flew to FLW's construction site and asked, "What exactly is your problem?" FLW said, "I'm frustrated. None of the shapes I'm using seem to go together." Moochie reached into her bag and pulled out the magic blocks. "Try these," she said. FLW stacked the blocks on top of one another, and boom, they were in the middle of the mama of all weeks. And when the dust settled, Moochie and FLW found themselves standing in front of a house as mysterious as it was marvelous. FLW was astonished. He asked Moochie what he should call it. Moochie blurted out, "The Robie House." And it stands there to this day, a tribute to Moochie and FLW.
Who's FLW?
FLW was Frank Lloyd Wright.
He was a famous architect.
There is nothing magical about these blocks.
Well, of course not. These aren't the real magic blocks of creation.
They're not?
No, those are way too valuable to walk around town with, even for someone like me.
Right. Do you think just anyone can play with magic blocks of creation? First graders.
Mandy, you're being mean.
He's right, Mandy. You're being snooty.
Actually, I heard a rumor that Frank Lloyd Wright stored the blocks at the Robie House. And with that, I bid you adieu. Otherwise, I'm gonna be late for my karate class.
He has a karate class?
I don't know.
The Robie House.
Do you think the magic box is still there?
There's only one way to find out. It's time for the Moochie Kalala Detectives Club!
Hey, hey, balls!
Architecture is in the house! We'll find out how Frank Lloyd Wright used the magic blocks to create the Robie House.
And find out what architects do.
We'll also see how buildings are supported. But the big question, are buildings made from shapes? Architects design buildings in all sorts of ways.
Super classical.
The White House, United States.
Super tall.
Burj Khalifa, Dubai.
Super cool.
Sydney Opera House, Australia.
Robie House is coming up.
Really?
It's very soon. I think, as long as I don't get lost. Not that I ever get lost, right, kids?
Uh-huh. The Robie House was built in 1910 for 28-year-old Frederick C. Robie.
By Frank Lloyd Wright. FLW.
Robie House equals prairie style, where the buildings and the surroundings blend together. It inspired an architectural revolution. Frank Lloyd Wright was an architect for 70 years. He completed over 1,100 designs. 25 of Frank Lloyd Wright's projects are National Historic Landmarks, including the Robie House. Besides designing buildings, Frank Lloyd Wright also designed leaded glass windows, furniture, light fixtures, and carpets. An architect draws the plans that show how a building should be built, sort of like a map. An architect plans the shapes inside the building and decides where to put the windows and doors. Architecture is both art and science. It uses design and creativity as well as math, physics, and engineering.
Last one to the front door is to clean my room for a week.
Well, there's always a first time for everything.
Where's the door?
I don't see it. Frank Lloyd Wright houses are mysterious.
Do you see what I see? We need to find the front door. It has to be here somewhere.
Frank Lloyd Wright designed the Robie House to be fun for kids.
I found it! I found it!
Clean your own room.
Dad?
Mr. Wright?
Mr. Wright, I'm Mandy and this is my brother Kyle. We're from the Moochie Kalala Detectives Club. Question, why is your door so hard to find?
Yeah, why is your door so hard to find even though I...
Lots of questions, kids. First of all, I'm not Frank Lloyd Wright. My name is Royce Yater, and I'm an architect on a tour of Mr. Wright's building.
Royce Yater, historical architect. He helps preserve old, historic homes.
His motto is, don't give me the new, let me renew the old.
Want to come along on that tour?
Sure.
Before we go, let me answer your question, Mandy, about the doors. Mr. Wright's doors are always a little bit tricky to find. He likes to create a sense of mystery, a sense of discovery. So, want to go discover it with me?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Frank Lloyd Wright designed this home in 1910, and yet today it's considered one of the most important pieces of architecture in America.
I know. Moochie Kalala named it.
He asked Moochie what he should call it. Moochie blurted out, the Robie House.
Well, not really. Frank Lloyd Wright designed it for the Robie family, and that's why it's called the Robie House.
FLW was Frank Lloyd Wright.
He was a famous architect.
We're here to find out where Mr. Wright hid the magical blocks of creation.
They're like these, only magical.
The magic blocks of creation.
I don't know about magical. Those are foible blocks, and they were very influential in Frank Lloyd Wright's career because he was able to use those shapes to create some of the most important architecture in the world.
Darwin D. Martin House, Buffalo, New York. Hollyhock House, Los Angeles, California. Imperial Hotel, Tokyo, Japan. Falling Water, Mill Run, Pennsylvania.
His mother gave them to him as a child, and they were very formative in his career.
Basic shapes. Kind of like how a pyramid is a triangle. And hotels are rectangles.
Exactly.
Grade 1, first grade, none.
Mandy.
Why is the ceiling so low?
Mr. Wright always compressed the ceilings of the initial space you come into because that encourages you to proceed through it and arrive at the grand ta-da when we get upstairs. Ta-da! Magical, huh? Look around, detectives. What do you see?
Rectangles and squares.
Yes, Mr. Wright was a master at using rectangles and squares. triangles, rhombuses.
By the way, these are rhombuses.
Parallelograms.
All squares, rectangles, and rhombuses are parallelograms. Trapezoids, too.
And all the shapes to make architecture come alive. In this case, he lets the light flow through those rectangles and shapes in order to bring the space to life, to add energy and excitement to the room.
Where are the circles?
You really are a detective, Mandy. But if you look carefully, there are some circles.
The lights.
Exactly. Here, Mr. Wright used the lights as decorative counterpoint to the rectangles and squares.
I see it.
We know that kids really like to build with blocks, but you know what they really like to do? Does this make you wonder why a building like this doesn't fall down?
As a member of the Moochie Kalala Detectives Club, we need to know.
Steel. Mr. Wright ran steel beams through this roof, as indicated in this drawing. It allows him to support this broad, sheltering roof on each end with cantilevers.
A cantilever is an overhang that is not supported at the corners.
Like a diving board!
Or whatever these guys are doing.
A cantilever is a beam firmly supported at one end, a post partially down its length that allows the far end to hang in midair.
So this is all supported by cantilever?
It is. And the great thing about cantilevers is that it allows the roof to appear to just float out here as though there was magic.
What made you become an architect, Mr. Yoder? Was it so you could play with basic shapes?
That's the reason, Mandy. I enjoy playing with complex shapes. But sometimes we make buildings out of just a single shape, like the Aeon building.
It's a rectangle.
Crane Communications Building, Chicago, Illinois.
Rhombus.
U.S. Capitol Building, Washington, D.C.
Dome.
St. Basil's Cathedral, Moscow, Russia.
Circle, 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 circle. Triangle.
And sometimes you can go crazy with all kinds of shapes. Just go nuts.
Like when we went to the Empire State Building. It had tons of shapes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yater.
Anytime.
When does your journey end, Mr. Yater?
The funny thing is, Mandy, it never does.
Today we discovered what great things we can accomplish while using basic shapes.
And if we take a look at our checklist, we never did find the magic blocks.
And the Robie House wasn't created by magic blocks. But we did uncover a bunch of new facts about architect Frank Lloyd Wright. Like his Robie House was a great example of prairie-style architecture. And he designed over 1,100 buildings. He was an architect for 70 years.
We discovered what architects do and how they use steel and cantilevers to support buildings.
And most of all, we definitely know that buildings are all made from shapes. Circles, triangles, rectangles, rhombuses. By the way, these are rhombuses. But Grandpa's still a little crazy with his stories. Magic blocks? Yeah, right.
Mandy, that's mean.
Okay, but he was kind of right. Frank Lloyd Wright did have blocks, but they weren't magical.
But even though they're not magic, maybe their magic is to make you think of unbelievable things.
Wow!
Frustrated. 5th grade. So wasted on youth. Agent D is too stunned to sign out right now. Detective Sherlock Robie Holmes out.
Hey, wait! Don't go yet! We need to test our discoveries.
But who can help?
We can help!
We're Mrs. Taylor's 5th grade class.
Woodgate Elementary School!
Awesome! Thanks, guys. We'll let you take it from here.
So our experiment today is about creating a design such as that of Frank Lloyd Wright.
We're actually going to be building a replica of the Robie House with blocks.
Let's open up our blocks and begin to design your own Robie house with all of the different shapes.
How about this? You see this? All you gotta do is this.
We have a lot of shape in our world, and so buildings are made by different shapes.
We made a triangle like this. Because I'm trying to make this part while she made this part. Kids, they really don't build things out of bricks, but they do build different kind of structures. Even little babies make things out of blocks. This is a replica of the Robie house. We wanted to make this part, and then this is right here.
That was awesome.
Look at all those detectives go.
Thanks for testing our discoveries.
And thanks for being part of the Moochie Kalala Detectives Club.
No problem!
Architects are people who design and build buildings.
Those are Froebel blocks, and they were very influential in Frank Lloyd Wright's career.
I think that he only played with blocks when he was a kid, but when he grew up, he still played with those blocks just to see different designs. It also gave him inspiration, that's why it was cool.
We're Mrs. Taylor's 5th grade class. Woodgate Elementary School.
Funding for Moochie Kalala Detectives Club is made possible by...
I've been going to North Shore for a long time.
Annual checkups.
High-risk pregnancy.
I have a child with autism.
Anything I had, they could handle.
Everything North Shore does, they do to manage my health care better.
Their research actually alerted me to my hypertension.
I avoided a stroke.
I think it's a combination of expertise and compassion.
That kind of commitment to me and my family. That's why I chose North Shore.
At North Shore University Health System, excellence is all around you.
With additional support from Sylvan Learning, locations in Hyde Park, University Village, Oak Lawn, Westmont, and Skokie Lincolnwood. Learn more at chicagosylvan.com. Whole Foods Market, People's Gas and North Shore Gas, natural gas delivery, and The Stream, a kid adventure film for the whole family, starring Mario Lopez, Kelly Rutherford, Christopher Gorham, and Rainn Wilson. Available on Amazon and iTunes.